At that time, Mahamati made this request of the Blessed One. Pray, tell me, Blessed One, about the being and non-being of all things. And when myself and other bodhisattva mahasattvas are freed of the notions of being and non-being, may we quickly attain supreme enlightenment. The Blessed One replied, Then, Mahamati, listen well and reflect within yourself. I will tell you. Mahamati the Bodhisattva Mahasattva said, Certainly, Blessed One, and gave ear to the Blessed One. Then the Blessed One said, People of this world are dependent on two things, Mahamati. That is, they are dependent on the idea of being and on that of non-being. And they fall into the views whereby they take pleasure, either in nihilism or in realism. They imagine emancipation where there is no emancipation. Now, Mahamati, who are the people dependent on the notion of being? It means this, that they regard the world as rising from causation, which is really existent, and that the actually existing and becoming world does not take its rise from causation which is non-existent. This will not be the case if the world is something non-existing. They thus talk of the really existing world as arising from the reality of causation. This is the realistic view of causation as held by some people. Now, Mahamati, what is meant by being dependent upon the idea of non-being? It means, Mahamati, admitting greed, anger, and folly, and yet discriminating as regards the non-reality of what makes up greed, anger, and folly. And, Mahamati, there is one who does not admit the reality of things because of their being devoid of individual marks. And there is another who, seeing that the Buddha, Shravakas, and Pratyeka Buddhas are free from greed, anger, and folly, because of all things being devoid of individual marks, think that greed, anger, and folly do not exist. Now, Mahamati, who of these is the one doomed to ruin? Said Mahamati, Blessed One, it is he who, admitting greed, anger, and folly, yet refuses to admit them. The Blessed One said, Well said indeed, Mahamati. Again, thou hast indeed spoken well, Mahamati. Not only is he himself doomed to ruin because of his notion of greed, anger, and folly as existent and yet as non-existent, but he ruins even the character of the Buddha, the Shravaka, and the Pratyeka Buddha. Why? Because the passions are not to be taken hold of innerly and outwardly, because they are neither different nor non-different. Mahamati, greed, anger, and folly, too, are not to be taken hold of innerly as well as outerly. They have no substance of their own, and they are not to be admitted. Mahamati, as there is no reality in the nature of greed, anger, and folly, he who fails to understand this is the one who ruins the character of the Buddha, Shravaka, and Pratyeka Buddha. The Buddha, Shravaka, and Pratyeka Buddha are by nature emancipated, as there is in them no cause for being bound and binding. Mahamati, on the other hand, where there is a state of being bound, there are the binding and the cause of bondage. And yet there is one who talks thus, that is, who denies causation. Such is doomed to ruin. Mahamati, this characterizes nihilism and realism. This is stated by me in accordance with the deeper sense. It is better to cherish the notion of an ego substance as much as Mount Sumeru than to have the notion of emptiness derived from the self-conceited view of being and non-being. One who is conceited in the view of being and non-being is indeed doomed to ruin. Those who are delighted in cherishing notions of individuality and generality fail to understand that an external world is nothing but mind itself and has no reality. And as they do not understand this, they regard things external as transient, for they suffer every moment changes which follow one after another, now splitting, now dividing. While the skandhas, dhatus, and ayatanas, succeeding one another and combining with one another, now come forward and now pass away. They who, thus disregarding words of the Scriptures, are given up to wrong discriminations are also doomed to ruin. So it is said. As far as the duality of being and non-being extends, there is the realm of intellection. When this realm vanishes, intellection completely ceases. When the external world is not grasped as real, there is neither causation nor reality. There is the essence of suchness, or tathata, which is the spiritual realm of the wise. Those who believe in the birth of something that has never been in existence and, coming to exist, finally vanishes away, which leads them to assert that things come to exist, things pass away according to causation, such people have no foothold in my teaching. It is not by the philosophers, not by the Buddhas, not by myself, not by anybody else, but by causation that being obtains. How can one talk of non-being? When being obtains by causation, who can bring about non-being? By reason of the wrong views based on the doctrine of birth, being and non-being are discriminated. When it is realized that there is nothing born, nothing passing away, there is no way to admit its being and non-being. The world is to be regarded as quiescent.